Welcome back to another episode of 4Expedition Adventure. In this episode, we venture out to the Sonoran Desert northeast of Scottsdale, Arizona for a maiden voyage bike pack adventure with my Trek 1120. Come along for this exciting 60-mile single-track wintertime ride. The next episode of 4Expedition Adventure starts now. Hey there, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of 4Expedition Adventure. I'm Scott Leuthold. Today I'm coming to you from the Sonoran Desert, and in more particular, I'm coming to you from McDowell Mountain Regional Park. I'll be camping here tonight. Yesterday morning, I got up and I embarked on my very first ever bike packing trip with my Trek 1120 mountain bike. I left Carefree. I rode about 30 miles on Singletrack all the way to Fountain Hills, Arizona. I stayed overnight at my sister's house. I got up this morning and I rode about halfway back to Carefree to the Ironwood Campground within McDowell Mountain Regional Park. I'll get up tomorrow morning and I'll ride all the rest of the way back home to Carefree. It's been a great trip so far. It's been very challenging in some ways. It's been very rewarding in other ways. I loaded up my bicycle with about 3 weeks worth of gear, even though I was only going for 3 days. And I've done this because I really want to load up my bicycle and test everything out for a much longer bike packing trip that I might take down the road. I've had such a great time on this trip so far. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, so sit back and enjoy the ride. Well, I departed from my house this morning in Carefree. I live right next door to Sky Ranch, which is a private air park in Carefree, and then I crossed over Cave Creek Road and headed over to Stagecoach Pass Road, which is just a little bit south of Cave Creek Road, and I'm taking that east all the way to the very end. And at the end of this road, I'm going to pick up the very end of the Maricopa Trail as it goes into the Sonoran Preserve. My original plan was to ride my bike all the way up to the top at Bartlett Lake Road and take Maricopa Trail all the way back along the power lines. Well, first of all, I don't like power lines. I don't like spending any time underneath power lines. I've also heard that that trail's really rough. So I decided to skip over that. I didn't really want to ride my bike on the busy highway or busy road all the way up to the top anyway. So I really like Stagecoach Pass. I'm taking this. I'll pick up the trail right up here and I'll be going right into the preserve at that point. So that's pretty cool. See that saguaro right there? It's not a saguaro, it's fake. It's a cell tower. I was just riding by it. You could hear the fans. On the side of it, there's some fans that are cooling it on the inside. See those red knees? Those red knees aren't red because they're cold. They're red because they're burning hot. Aha! We have arrived. Well, we crossed over into the preserve. I got to take this power line road just for a little bit, and there'll be a left turn coming up here that I'm going to take. Trails up here are nice and smooth. They're really not a real rocky trail surface. Oh, here we go. Here's our turnoff. Look at that single track. Really nice and smooth. What I wanted to show you is that we're going to be going around some of these mountains. I forget the name. I mean, I don't know which ones are which. I know one of them's Cholla Mountain. This is all Brown's Ranch in here. And this used to be a private ranch, and it was acquired by the city of Scottsdale and turned into a preserve. That mountain range that you see in the far distance, that is the McDowell Mountains. And on the left side, you see that large mountain sticking up. That is called East End Peak. And then below that, to the left, there's a slope down and a smaller peak, and then it drops behind the slope there. that's where I'm going to be going. I'm heading that direction over to McDowell Mountain Park. So there's really good maps of this area. If you get on mtbproject.com and look up Brown's Ranch, you can zoom in and it's very interactive. There's a lot of photographs and things like that. And that's how I planned this trip. And I wasn't sure if I was going to have cell coverage here or not, so I took screenshots of all the trails that I was going to be taking. So I know where I'm going. The mountains here are pretty descriptive. There's a pretty thick overcast I wasn't expecting, but it's nice and warm. Frankly, I don't even need this long sleeve hoodie. I could probably just be riding with my t-shirt. Fantastic time of the year to be out here. I might consider doing a backpacking trip in the Superstitions this month yet. Wouldn't that be cool? Cross-country ski trip, a bikepacking trip, and a backpacking trip, and maybe even a paddleboard trip all in 1 month. That would be pretty nuts. But those are the kinds of things that you can do in Arizona, all in one state, year-round activities for the adventurer. All right, Stagecoach Trail. See what I mean about how smooth this trail is? All of Brown's Ranch is like this. There's some spots where it gets a little rocky, and of course when you drop down into a wash, which is a dry riverbed, it's sometimes sandy, so you have to be careful of that. I've been doing a lot of training here at Brown's Ranch for this ride, but this is pretty much the first time I've been on this bike with all this gear on it. But I wasn't really too concerned about training with all the gear because these trails are so nice and smooth. I really love it here. Such a beautiful time of the year. The gravel that's on this trail, which is the natural desert surface, in landscaping in Arizona they call that quarter minus because the pebbles are a 1/4 inch or smaller. And a lot of people landscape their entire yards with this stuff. All right, looks like we're starting to get into the boulder area. The closer we get to these mountains, the more boulders we're going to come upon. And it's just a really cool thing. There's a bunch of balanced rocks out here. Some really neat rock formations. I'll be showing some of those to you. But the trail will still be as smooth as it is, so it's been great so far. Oop. Well, believe you me, it's not really all that safe filming a mountain bike ride in the desert. And that's because, for a variety of reasons. One, there's cactus everywhere, and I've already gotten stabbed in the ankle once. I want to make sure I don't do that again. You know, when you're setting up cameras and camera angles, sometimes you're walking into the desert a little bit. I've been here for 35, 36 years, so I know what I'm doing. But the other thing is, you don't want to get flat tires by turning your bike around off trail and have it get punctured by a thorn of some kind. And then snakes. Don't really have to worry about snakes this time of the year though. They're hibernating. They might be out sometimes in the winter when it's really sunny and warm, so they'll come out and sun themselves, but for the most part, they're gone for the winter. Get a little speed. I haven't been going very fast on this because just getting used to all this weight. I might as well enjoy all this nice downhill because tomorrow and Friday I got to come back up. And from Fountain Hills to Carefree, it's mostly uphill in elevation. All right, we have arrived at Cholla Mountain Loop. So we're going to take a right here. This is going to drop down into this valley, and it's going to cut between this mountain here and Cholla Mountain. And then on the other side is this rock formation called the Amphitheater. And then down below that is another rock formation called Balanced Rock. So I thought while I was out here, I'd be a little bit of a tour guide. I'm sure a lot of you that are watching this aren't really all that familiar with Arizona and the Sonoran Desert. So I'm going to show you a few things. First of all, a saguaro cactus has ribs inside of it. And it's, I don't know, something like 90% water. And then it's got these ribs and a very small root ball at the bottom. So everything has to do with balance. The arms are positioned in certain ways on the hillsides in order to create balance. And from what I understand, the first arm doesn't grow for the first 100 years. So it's pretty incredible. But here's a saguaro here that's dead. So here's one of the arms. It's dead. You can see the ribs. It comes back. This is where it attached onto the main trunk. And right here is the actual saguaro skeleton. They call these saguaro ribs. And if I go around the other side without stabbing myself with cactus thorns, like there's a bunny, a lot of critters out here, you can see that the inside's kind of got a sort of a meat. And this just soaks up with water. It's almost like a sponge. And then you've got this external rib, which gives it all of its structure. And the spines grow right on these ribs. And then that's when you see a saguaro that's mature and still alive, you can see that it's got ribs and hills and valleys, and right here is where the spines usually grow. These are called jumping cholla, and what's really interesting about these, and I've got this stick here, I'm going to show you how easy it is to knock one of these off. See that? These little guys are just hanging on for dear life onto the main plant, and when something goes by it and brushes against it, these little spines here are hollow. And from what I understand, when they puncture into your body, your moisture causes the tips of these to curl, almost like a barbed wire, and then they're really hard to pull out. I'll tell you a couple little stories. They both have to do with dogs. When I was in my 20s, I had a miniature dachshund named Frankie, and I took him on a little hike, and he got himself off leash, and he ran off into the desert just a little ways, and ran right through a jumping cholla patch, all of them on the ground, and the little guy got jumping cholla all over in his pink little belly, and I had to take a pliers and flip him onto his back in the middle of the trail and pull them all out. It took me about an hour to pull them out. That was a lesson that I learned. And then my good friend John, back in my 20s, he got himself a chocolate lab named, I think his name was Jake. And Jake, when he was a puppy, kind of did the same thing. But Jake ended up getting one in his paw, and instead of allowing us to pull it out of his paw before we could get to it, he tried to get it out with his mouth, and he ended up with jumping cholla thorns in the roof of his mouth, in his gums, in his tongue, and oh my God, we spent so much time trying to get those things out, and that was a lesson learned again for us, and I'm sure for Jake. All right, let's get back to it, huh? Learned how to prop this up against something so I don't have to keep picking it up off the ground. We're coming up through the amphitheater. So I decided to go off the trail just a little bit, 0.1 miles, to go up to see the Amphitheater Rock formation. And it's pretty cool and a really nice view from here. Check this out. This is the trail I came up on here. That's Cholla Mountain in the distance there. But look at this awesome rock formation. Always let them see you sweat. I left around 8:30 from my place. It's now about 10:30, 10:45. I've got quite a ways to go. I think I've probably only gone maybe a third of the way. So I can't really tinker around like I've been doing, exploring and setting up lots of great shots. I really do need to cover some ground. Once you get into Fountain Hills, what I want to do is I want to get down, get across Rio Verde Drive, around East End Peak and into the McDowell Mountain Regional Park and onto the Pemberton Trail. A lot of you probably know about the Pemberton Trail. And then I'm going to get off the Pemberton Trail on Dixie Mine Trail, take that into the backside of Fountain Hills. And the backside of Fountain Hills, the access point is, I forget the name, I think it's Desert Tortoise Drive. And then that connects to Golden Eagle Boulevard. And then I drop down to my sister's house in Fountain Hills. But let me tell you, the return trip is going to be pretty gnarly. It is all uphill. I mean, Fountain Hills is pretty high up in elevation because it's up against the eastern slope of the McDowell Range. But Carefree, Cave Creek, where I live, is much higher in elevation heading north. So it's going to be a pretty gnarly ride. That's why I broke it into 2 days. I'm going to stay in McDowell Mountain Park. I kind of wish I could have camped further north, but I found out by being on the Arizona Bikepackers group that you cannot camp in the preserve. And I didn't really realize that. I guess it makes sense. I've been living in Arizona in this area for so long. I used to backpack up in the McDowell Range before it was a preserve and camp up there. And man, that was awesome because there were no homes, no people. There were a couple Jeep trails and the Jeep tour companies would come up in that area once in a while. But can't do that anymore. So I had to camp much further south, which will only be about a third of the way in coming back. So I'll have 2/3 all uphill on the way back on Friday. Well, my friends, it started to rain a little bit, but it's just a little misty rain. Feels kind of good, to be honest. But man, I tell you, I sure wish you had smell-o-vision. There is nothing better in Arizona than the smell of fresh, wet creosote bushes in the desert. Shortly after the rain starts coming down, the creosote bushes just start smelling so good, and it's a very distinct smell, kind of a musty smell, but it's a really great smell. In fact, I've got a bag of, like a little potpourri bag in my RV that I have hung up on the wall. And every once in a while, all you have to do is take it and soak it under a faucet and hang it back up, and it makes your whole place smell like fresh creosote, wet creosote bushes. Love it. Now we're on the Balanced Rock Trail, heading over toward the Balanced Rock. Then after that, we'll drop south, cross over Rio Verde Drive. Just met a really nice guy at one of the intersections named Alex. Shout out to you, Alex. Nice to meet you. Hope you found the channel all right. I'm sure you'll enjoy watching this video. He was on a really nice mountain bike. He had a pivot. Looks like he's been doing that a while. Truck wagon trail. Now we're staying on Balanced Rock Trail. All right, looks like we got here to Balanced Rock. Climb up here and take a look. The next trail I've got to take is called Gooseneck. It takes you all the way down to the north slope of East End Peak in the McDowells, and then skirts around the east side of it, and then there's a connector trail that connects you up to the Pemberton Trail inside McDowell Mountain Park. I'm going to do that. Trail's still really nice and smooth. I really haven't encountered that much rock. The city of Scottsdale has built some really nice trailheads. Beautiful buildings. Rusted steel. Cool architecture. Nice place to stop for a rest, really. Nobody's here. There's a lot of cars in the parking lot, but nobody's up here. So I kind of have this whole platform here to myself. It's kind of nice. Stop and have a couple of cuties. And have some protein bars. Maybe an apple. Still have that song Beautiful Day by U2 going through my head. Same one I had going last week when I was cross-country skiing to the yurt in Flagstaff. Glad you could join me on both of these trips. Man, it's awesome that you guys could get the time off. Thanks for coming along. I really appreciate it. It's nice to have somebody to talk to. Well, I finally made it across Rio Verde Drive on the Gooseneck Trail. And instead of taking the Gooseneck all the way up to the McDowell Mountains, which is over here on the other side of a fence to my right, I decided to take 128th Street, which is a dirt road, very smooth, very straight, and allows me to make up a little bit of time for the time I spent on setting up filming and stuff like that. I'll pick up the Gooseneck again up here. It crosses over 128th Street. I'll pick it up and then I'll be in McDowell Mountain Park pretty quick on the Pemberton Trail. All right, it looks like it's downhill to McDowell Mountain Park. I've got 1.25 miles before I get to the park, and I'm sure that once I get to the park, it's the Pemberton. So I'm pretty happy about that. Pemberton's a nice, smooth trail. I should be able to bust through that and get over to Dixie Mine. Dixie Mine's a pretty rough trail, but it's already 1:15, and my sister's not expecting me anytime in particular, but I told her I'd probably be there early evening, which is probably about accurate. So, good sign. It's all quarter minus. Heck, 1.25 miles on this. I'll be there in about 5 minutes. Oof, stop. Oof, oof, oof. Holy cow, we made it to McDowell Mountain Regional Park. Coming up on the Pemberton. Yeehaw. That was pretty Van Doozled. Or is it Van Doozered? Van Doozled? Van Doozered? You tell me. So far this bike's doing pretty well. The weights, you can definitely tell the weight. You can definitely sense the weight, but it's not too bad really. Pretty well balanced it feels. The only thing I would say is that when you put the brakes on, the brakes don't seem to stop the bike very well. On this small gravel stuff, you put on the brakes, if you're gonna run into a cactus, you're gonna run into the cactus, because made my way to the Dixie Mine Trail here on the Pemberton. It's my last trail before I hit Fountain Hills. But it looks to me like I'm gonna have a pretty gnarly ridge climb ahead of me here. The Fountain Hills is located on the other side of that long ridge line. So let's do this, huh? Let's do this. What's that? I can hear the crack of a beer can opening up on the breeze. Well, here we go. The final trail on our first leg of our journey. It's not too bad. Definitely looks a little bit rougher than the trails that I've been enjoying. This is very similar to what most of the Arizona mountain biking trails are like. The Browns Ranch area and the smooth part of Pemberton, that is somewhat of a rarity. This is pretty common. And I don't have a front suspension fork on this thing. I got a rigid fork, so I'm feeling every bump. Well, here we are coming into the burn area. Some of you may recall a forest fire out here in Fountain Hills this past summer. They're still standing, but I'm sure they're on their way to dying. You can see they were pretty crispy. Saguaros do burn. That hole there, that was a home. You can see the spines over here. Over here, the spines were literally burned right off. But apparently the wind was blowing in this direction because you can still see some green. And there's still spines on this side. But unfortunately, after as old as this cactus probably is, it's on its way to dying. So this is an area of the ridge that has not burned up on the hill there. And you can see right here where the fire line shifted. Everything to this side is burned off. More than likely there was some sort of a slurry bomber or something like that that stopped the fire from spreading any further, because on the other side of this ridge are homes. But as you can see, everything here is pretty crispy. And this Dixie mine trail sure sucks. Tomorrow will be better because it'll be downhill, but it's a very rough trail anyway, so I'll have to be pretty careful coming down it with all this gear. But a trail that goes up for as long as this one's going up, and as rough as it is, with lots of rocks in the trail, I just decided to walk. I have to admit, this boy's a little beat. This is probably mile number 27, 26. I estimated around 30 miles. It could be a little more than 30 miles even, I'm not sure. And I'm not tracking it. I guess I could figure out by going online and looking at the distance of each one of the trails I took. But that would require effort that I'm not really interested in putting in. You'll just have to go do that yourself. Still cycling against the wind. Cycling against the wind. Cycling against the wind. Ah, we made it to the top of the hill. I'm excited. It looks like this trail curls around and goes down the other ridge line there. I tell you what. Now I know why Ryan Van Duzel is a little spastic in his bikepacking videos. Bikepacking will do that to you. It's the only sport so far that I've come across. Well, I shouldn't say that. Backpacking's a little like that. I didn't get quite as tired when I was cross-country ski packing last week. Yeah, usually halfway through a backpacking trip I ask myself, why am I doing this? But then I always end up doing another one. I like this. I don't like these uphills with the very rough rocks and stuff, but it goes with the territory. You know, I could have stayed on the highway. I'd have been there by now, but that's not what this is all about. I really wanted to get out here and do some single track and challenge myself to accomplish this as my first maiden voyage with this Trek 1120. And I'm feeling pretty good about it. Yep. Sun's starting to drop a little lower in the western sky. Pretty soon it'll be behind the McDowells. And I'll be sipping well, no, I won't be sipping a beer. I'll be chugging a beer with my sister, my sister. I'm gonna walk my bike back in here a little bit. I don't want somebody snagging anything off of it. But we're down in a wash below the Dixie mine. I think I'll leave the bicycle right here. Oh, baby. I love you, bicycle. Show you the side entrance here. It's a little closed off with some bars, but I can still show you. We can look in. Really nice, lush wooded wash down here. And you can see up there, That's all the tailings of the mine. You can go up there and it's flat and look right down into the mine. But I'm not going to do that because that would require me to go up. And going up does not sound like much fun. Here it is. This is the Dixie mine. Can't get in. Oh, be cool to go in there. But you can't. It's all closed off. They've got a sign here that just talks about staying out of it, but one of the cool things is it shows you how deep it goes. There's some side chutes, you know. I don't know if, it looks like maybe that's water. And then I imagine somewhere back in here, it goes straight up. Let's go for a little hike. I gotta burn off a little energy. My prediction is that you do too. Couch surfer. Usually you find petroglyphs in places like this where water collects. You know, I would imagine that it would be a good place for native people to congregate. And if there's water in these pools, at certain times of the year, these pools are full of water. I've seen it. In fact, I've even sat in some of these pools of water in the past. Here we go. Look at that. There's some newspaper rocks for you. There's some more down there on that rock. But what it says here is it says that on January 1st, 2012, the world's going to come to an end. And get prepared. They must have had a conversation on a long distance call with the Mayans. Here's a snake X. And it's a chicken foot. My research tells me that's a chicken foot. This is called basalt, this rock. This black rock. It's volcanic. I'm generally not very concerned about being out here in the wilderness. There are wild animals. There's definitely mountain lions in this mountain range. And I will say that when you're walking down the bottom of a wash, it's always a good idea to kind of look above, on either side, in front and behind you, because it's a good way for a mountain lion to stalk you. If they're up above, they can run ahead because you're going slow through the trees. They can run ahead or they can come up behind. You just have to be a little careful. And I will tell you that when I lived in Fountain Hills, over the course of 13 years, I did see 3 or 4 of them. One of them ran in front of my car, and it was enormous. I mean, it was enormous. So they're out here. They're in the McDowells, and Fountain Hills is on the eastern slope of the McDowells. Scottsdale's on the western slope, but in between, it is wild. Let's get this little bicycle out of here and go enjoy ourselves. All right, so we're now on the Dixie Mine Road. Oh, this bag decided to pull some shenanigans and fly off the side of my vehicle. Give it a break because this is a very rough road I was on, and I was going very fast. Well, first signs of life in a while. You see homes up on tops of those ridges over there. I am frickin' spent. My friends, this is what they say. This is where gets real. All downhill the rest of the way. We're almost there. We're pulling up. Oh, and she's even outside waiting for me. I bet she's been outside all day. Pacing the driveway. Where's my brother? Where's my brother? There's my sister. Hi. Oh, Come here. Oh, how are you?
I was just gonna go looking for you.
And there's my brother-in-law. Look at, he's got 4X logos on the side of his truck because he's got a rooftop tent. All right, everybody, man, it's been quite a day. That last segment was really rough on Dixie Mine. Wow. I don't think I'll take Dixie Mine Trail back into the park tomorrow. I think I'll take Rio Verde Drive all the way in and just get to the entrance, and then take the Pemberton Trail over to the Ironwood Campground and get there early, set up camp, and maybe just do a little day ride. But wow, I have muscles in my body I didn't even know I had. I got to my sister's house here in Fountain Hills, and they had a nice cold beer waiting for me, so she and my brother-in-law and I just hung out and had a good time. Gonna hit the hay now and get up early tomorrow morning and head into the park, so until tomorrow. Ah, and we're off like a dirty diaper. What a gorgeous morning. I'm wearing shorts. It's February. Sun's out. Brisk. Air's brisk. It's cool, but it's warm, if you know what I mean. Well, here we are in Fountain Hills, Arizona. Leaving Fountain Hills, Arizona. Well, today I'm going to be riding down Rio Verde Drive, which is a country highway that heads out to McDowell Mountain Regional Park. So I'm going to go do that. But before I do that, I'm going to run into town here. It's really kind of surreal and nostalgic for me to be riding through Fountain Hills because when I moved here in 1989 from Wisconsin, I moved here with my parents. I had just graduated high school and they invited me to move out here with them because they were planning on moving out here. And we drove from Wisconsin all the way out here to Fountain Hills. And my parents ended up buying a house here in Fountain Hills. So I got my start in Arizona that many years ago, 35, 36 years ago here in Fountain Hills. And then I left Fountain Hills when I got a little older. My parents stayed here. And I found a woman and ended up getting married to her. And we ended up moving back up here to Fountain Hills. We bought a home. And I had my first career position working here in Fountain Hills for the Fountain Hills Times newspaper. And I was a graphic artist, and I designed and sold advertising. And then eventually I even started doing all sorts of political cartoons for the newspaper. And then my son was born when I lived up here. My parents eventually left, but my mom had a shop right here on the Avenue of the Fountains for years called South Teak Mercantile. So, you know, I've got a lot of family, still lives here. My brother and sister both have homes here. So I have a lot of history here. See that building there? When I lived up here years and years and years ago, that used to be a Dairy Queen. I got a really great memory from that Dairy Queen. When my son was 1 year old, I took him to that Dairy Queen. I had a Jeep Grand Cherokee at the time, and he was in a car seat in the back. And I remember getting an ice cream cone and climbing in the back seat with him and sharing one ice cream cone. He'd get a lick, and then I'd get a lick. He'd get a lick, then I'd get a lick. It was really cool. I remember that all the time. I think about that from time to time because now he's so much older, 21 years old. That's one of those things that I think about when I look at him now. So there's a pond here in Fountain Hills, or a lake, if you will. But it's essentially an effluent evaporation system. So Fountain Hills, when it was first built, needed some way to evaporate purified wastewater. So they'd pump it into this lake here, and then there was a fountain in the middle of the lake that shot up like 500 and some feet. And because the air is so dry, all the mist would essentially dissipate and evaporate into the air. Plus they also water this entire lake with purified wastewater. So all this green grass around here is irrigated, in my opinion, in a very smart way. reusing purified wastewater to create greenery here in the desert. Let's head out of here. Head out to McDowell Mountain Regional Park. Anyway, my how time flies, huh? Time goes really, really fast. I hope you're using all your time wisely. I was talking to this guy, John. He lives in Australia. He's a subscriber and fan of 4Expedition. And really nice guy. We've been chatting on Facebook, private message. And it's one of the things I was just telling him about. There's a book called The 4-Hour Workweek. And one of the fundamental points in the book the guy talks about is taking mini retirements throughout life. And I definitely subscribe to that concept. Taking months off throughout your life and consider them to be mini retirements, giving yourself a break. Why wait until you're 60 or 70 years old when you're slowing down to finally reward and gift yourself some time to go do the things you love to do? Well, so I thought I'd show you guys one more interesting thing about Fountain Hills before I leave town. When I was 22 years old, I bought my first house. My wife and I at the time qualified for this house, and we bought it. And I did a lot of really nice things with it. 22 years old. I was the only person my age among my friends that had a house. We used to have all the parties at my house. This place right here. That was my home at age 22. So it's probably a good idea to point out that right on the northern edge of Fountain Hills, before you leave town and start heading out to McDowell Mountain Regional Park, there's a bike shop called Fountain Hills Bikes. It's been here for ages. But it's really probably an important thing to share with all of you in case some of you decide you want to do this trip, or let's say maybe you want to do a Maricopa Trail loop trip. Know that if you have bicycle problems in McDowell Mountain Regional Park, you can always make your way over here to Fountain Hills Bikes to get your bike repaired or get some other bicycle accessories or whatever it is you might need. Well, it's only 4 miles to McDowell Mountain Regional Park from Fountain Hills. Nice bicycle shoulder here. Hopefully there'll be a shoulder all the way out to the park. Got a great downhill here. Beautiful morning. My butt is really sore. Riding along on this road, I'm just trying to ignore it, but that's not all that easy to do. All right, I've arrived at McDowell Mountain Regional Park entry. Everybody, including bicyclists, has to check in at the front gate. I just met this really cool woman named Peggy. She was on her mountain bike. Peggy works at REI, or works for REI. And she spends half of her year down here in Arizona working at the REI in Paradise Valley. And she spends the other half of the year living in Sisters, Oregon, working for REI up there. And she also has her own meal business. So if you're ever in Sisters, Oregon, stop into the REI and say hi to Peggy. Or if you're in Paradise Valley, Arizona, stop in and say hi to her there too. Really cool lady, and she gave me some great ideas for an adventure to take. She highly recommends going to Crater Lake and doing a cross-country ski backpack trip around the lake in the winter. So that's something I might put on my list. Thanks a lot, Peggy. You know, one thing I'm discovering about bike packing is you end up spending a lot of, especially if you're on Singletrack, you end up spending a lot of time around people that are mountain bikers. Traversing here in McDowell Mountain Regional Park, I have met so many awesome mountain bike people from all over the place, because this time of the year, everybody in the cold regions they come down here if they have the time and the ability to be able to do so. So they come down here and spend time. Well, I just met a really cool couple named Paco and Ann from Idaho, and they're rangers or hosts. They're camp hosts down here. They come down here for the winter, and they spend a lot of their time mountain biking and rock climbing down here. If you come down, I think they're in an overflow camping area. Paco and Ann, nice to meet you too, and look forward to getting to know you guys a little bit better. Here in the park, we're going to take Escondido. We're right here, and this is where I just met Paco and Ann. They're staying here in this area. And we're going to take Escondido all the way up, this purple one, all the way up here, and this is Ironwood Campground. Probably take about 45 minutes to get up there. some uphill and downhill, I'm sure. But we've got all the time in the world. I don't really have anything else to do today but get up there to the campground, set up camp, and just chill. First little uphill here. These uphills always have a little more rock on them. Well, I see cars up ahead, and I see what appears to be a Volkswagen camper with the top popped up, so that must be my campground. This has been the Escondido Trail, really nice trail. As my new friend Paco told me, there would be some rewarding climbs, and that there were. Deserved. Well, it pretty much looks like everything else I've seen for the last 45 minutes, but the big difference is that there's a picnic table, there's a grill, and there's a fire pit that I probably will not use. And it looks like they want you to pitch a tent right there. But I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I found a spot down here behind these trees that I'm gonna have my lunch. And what's really cool is that it's totally grassy. See here? See the tall grass? Which is somewhat inspiring me to not pitch a tent at all and instead just sleep out here in the grass. In my sleeping bag, of course. And what's the worst that's gonna happen? I'm gonna be licked in the face by a coyote. Contrary to what you might have heard, it's not as bad as you think. I kind of enjoyed it. Oh, thank God for shade. Can't complain though. There's a really nice breeze. And to be honest, the air temperature is pretty cool. It's just that when you get into the beating sun for a long time, it does get a little warm. It's one of the reasons I'm putting this gaiter around my neck, just to shade my neck. I really should wet it, but I want to be fairly sparing of how much water I use because I need some for tonight, for cooking and drinking. And then when I ride back home tomorrow, I'll be going right past Fraser Field. I think it's called Fraser Field. I keep getting all these names wrong. Fraser something trailhead. And from what I understand, they've got water there now. They've maybe drilled a well or something. But there's water there so I can refill there. I don't think there's potable water here at the campground, but I might take a little gander down toward the bathrooms and see. Usually there's water spigots, but I don't know if it's potable. We'll see. Last week when I was on the cross-country ski trip, this sandwich went over so well, I decided to make one of these yesterday morning at home. I was going to eat it for lunch yesterday, but I didn't. Got all the way to my sister's without eating it. So today, got this nice ham sandwich on gluten-free bread. Wow, those skies sure are blue, especially against all the green Palo Verde branches. Not a cloud in the sky. Quite the contrast from last week. Laying outside in tall grass in the desert to get a little shade instead of bundled up cross-country skiing. Something you can't get in a lot of states, that kind of contrast. And I've worn shorts for the past 2 days on this bike trip. And only a couple of hours north of here, I would have to bundle up and put on some snowshoes. Pretty sweet. You may remember yesterday me showing you jumping cholla and just how easily these little balls come off just by rubbing against them. What you're probably not going to believe is that that's a nest. There's a nest. Somehow a bird managed to build a nest in a jumping cholla without getting caught in the cholla. There's the hole. It goes way back in there. Just incredible. So if you watch my channel, you're probably pretty familiar with the fact that I live in Carefree, Arizona, and 4Expedition is essentially headquartered in Carefree. And adjacent to Carefree is a really cool little town named Cave Creek. Both towns are really special little towns. And if you've never been there, I definitely encourage you, if you're passing through town, spend some time up in Carefree and Cave Creek. Cave Creek is a very western town. There's a lot of saloons there. There's a lot of quirky shops and restaurants. Pretty much at any given time, there's like 6 bands playing somewhere around town. And then adjacent to that, where I live, is Carefree. And the downtown area of Carefree is really cute and quaint. Kind of reminds me of a mountain ski town. And there's great little restaurants there. Both towns are on the north slope of Black Mountain, which is located north of Scottsdale. And they both sit at about 2,000 feet in elevation, maybe 2,500 feet in elevation. So they're significantly higher in elevation than the rest of the city of Phoenix. So if you're passing through and you're looking for something to do, definitely stop into Carefree and Cave Creek. I think you'll really enjoy it. I like to support local, and there's a great little bike shop in Cave Creek that I definitely have spent some time in, and it's called Flat Tire Bike Shop. And if you go in there, there's a guy named John that'll help you out. He's just a great guy. I got excellent customer service when I went in there to get prepared for this trip. Flat Tire is owned by a guy named Kalen. I've only met him once. But I definitely had good service, and if you're looking for somebody to fix your bike when you're passing through Arizona, definitely pull off the I-17, take the Carefree Highway over to Cave Creek, and go into Flat Tire. So I thought I'd take this opportunity to do a little giveaway. John was nice enough to give me a pair of cycling socks with their logo on it, Flat Tire Bike Shop, Cave Creek, Arizona. And what's really cool is there's a saguaro cactus on here. So if you put these socks on, it looks like the saguaro is growing out of your shoes. I really like these socks. So I thought I'd take the opportunity to do a giveaway. If you're a member of Team 4X, log into the membership portal. I'll have a couple of trivia questions about this adventure. And whoever answers the questions first will win this pair of socks, and I'll be happy to mail those off. So I just want to do my part to support local and support Flat Tire Bike Shop. We got some lentils. And we got a sopressata. And a lot of people ask me, if I'm camping outside without a tent, am I concerned about animals and critters? The reality is, if any kind of an animal that's truly going to hurt you is going to tear through your tent, no differently than if you're sleeping outside. And this time of the year, February, most snakes are hibernating. Snakes generally come out at night, but it's too cold at night in February. So they might come out during the day for a little while to sun themselves, as I mentioned yesterday. But for the most part, you don't really have to worry about snakes either. And same thing with scorpions. Scorpions tend to hibernate as well. So I'm not too concerned about scorpions. If there is something that I'm a little concerned about, I got this big ass knife. So I have a cocoon liner, This is a silk liner, and if it gets extra cold tonight, this 0-degree bag usually keeps me nice and toasty warm, but I can put this liner inside the sleeping bag and it probably drops it to -10. So these things are really great. They're made of silk. They go inside, so you get inside this and then you get inside your sleeping bag. Now that the coyotes stopped howling, it's really quiet out here. I've got 2 campers not too far away. One of them's got a Toyota truck and sleeping in a tent. The other one's sleeping in a van. Nobody's over in my area though. It's pretty nice. But once everything calms down, the wind calms down, the coyotes stop howling, it's just really, really peaceful out here. Hey, how's it going? I'm just out here in the desert with no tent, sleeping on a tarp with my air mattress and my sleeping bag under a tree on some tall grass. Yep, looking up at the stars. Incredible. The stars are just so bright right now. I can see so much. I can see Taurus, Orion, Pegasus, Pleiades, Andromeda, Ursa Major, Ursa Minor, Mars, and I could even see some deep sky stuff with this app that I'm using. Pretty cool. I could see some nebulas and some galaxies. Pretty cool. Well, I think this is it. Gonna get myself a good night's sleep, get up tomorrow morning, and we'll be back in Brown's Ranch. I love riding through there. It'll be pretty nice. Until tomorrow morning, good night. Man, what a night. A couple times throughout the night I woke up and looked up at the stars, and the sky was so dark and the stars were so bright. It was just amazing. I even saw a shooting star right over the top of my head. Amazing. I did get a little chilly one part of the night. I think it's probably because I'm laying on this air mattress. You know, air tends to get cold, and when you're laying on top of something that's cold, it tends to happen. This is a 0-degree bag, as I mentioned, though. And I ended up not using my cocoon, mostly because I was too lazy to get up in the middle of the night and get out of my warm sleeping bag to put it on. But I ended up doing all right. There were a lot of coyotes howling all around me all night long. Thought about that a couple of times. Very easily, one could have just walked right through the middle of my camp. I've had javelina do that before. although I was camping in my rooftop tent at the time. I was out at Apache Lake and I was cooking, and a bunch of javelina with their babies ran right through the middle of my camp with my dog there, and I just grabbed my dog and threw her in the car. I think I'll get up, make some hot tea, let the sun warm my bones, then hop on this thing called a bicycle and head up to Brown's Ranch. And we're off. Ah, it's a beautiful morning. Crisp, cool air. Sun's nice and warm. Good morning, Vietnam, and Japan, and China, and Russia, Hong Kong, South Africa, Germany, my friends in the UK, all my friends in Australia, Canada, and all 50 states here in the US. I really appreciate you following along. I hope you have a great day, or depending on what time it is, I hope you had a great day. Thanks for following along. It's going to be a really great rest of this trip. A couple of coyotes just ran across the trail. I don't know if you can see them. There's one. Oh, he's looking at me. They're both, oh, there's 3 of them. 4 of them. Oh, there's a whole pack. Man. Looks like we're coming down on Jackass Junction. I'll show that to you. Doesn't look like anybody's here. It's a really cool thing. All right, so we arrived at Jackass Junction. This is a shade structure that was built back in 2017 by volunteers from the MBAA, and I think it's a really cool place. They've got some cool beer can ornaments hanging from the ceiling, and there's a picnic table here. One of the things I really like is the fact that they've got this bike stand here. You can hang your bike up here. There's a bike pump. There's bicycle tools you can use. And then inside, there's inner tubes. And inside here, there's some cool stuff. Look at this. You got all sorts of things that you might need to fix your bike. So if you're gonna be on a long range bike packing trip and you're on the gooseneck and you're gonna connect over to Pemberton Trail at some point, my recommendation is to cut across from Gooseneck on the connector trail to Pemberton, because it comes right here to Jackass Junction, and it's a great place to stop and rest and tune up your bike or whatever you might need to do. I love how on the roof there's this skeleton up here holding a can of beer, and it says Javelina Volunteer on his shirt, or her shirt. Okay, while we're here, quickly I'm going to show you a few things about my bike. First of all, I've got an 8-liter dry bag on the top here. This is Sea to Summit. I've got my sleeping bag in there. It's being held on by this foam covered metal strapping, which is super tight. Very awesome. Doesn't budge at all. Below that, I've got a solar panel, and then I've got my tarp. And on either side on the fork on the front, I've got, I believe these are 5.7, they could be 5.5 liter dry bags. In this one, I've got my tent, and on the other side, I've got my kitchen set up and all of my food. And then down here, I've got an extra water bottle. It's being held on by Velcro. So then in this waterproof bag, I've got electronics. I've got my Spot Gen 3, which is my locator device. I've got my headphones, and I've got my headlamp, things like that I keep in here. And then back here, this is my clothing, and then I keep my tent stakes in here because they don't fit in the other dry bag. I've got some bicycle tools in here, and then down in here I've got everything else. I've got my cocoon sleeping insert, I've got my pillow, and a number of other accessories. So that's pretty much what I carry around. Really dig these fun GRS pedals. They're clipped on one side, and on the other side they've got a really awesome metal pegged grip. I have decided that on these trips, I think I am not going to wear my clip-in shoes. I've been mostly riding this way. Now, if I was on a long distance trip where I was going to be on a long straightaway, I might want to use the clips. But on stuff that I've been riding, I feel like it's better for my feet to be free. Well, while I'm here and resting, I wanted to mention a couple of names, a couple of my subscribers and a couple of my Team 4X members. First off, I wanted to mention John down in Australia and my friend Neil in Texas. Both of you guys have been out of work for a while because of this pandemic. I think both of you have been out of work for about 12 months. And I know that you're both very talented guys and have a lot of experience in what you do. I just wanted to let you know that things are going to be okay. You're going to get another job again, and while you're off, take a little time for yourself and, just consider it an opportunity to get out there a little bit. And it doesn't have to cost much. Go and do a few things. I know you're both out there. John in Australia's got a Jeep Wrangler, and Neil's got a Jeep Cherokee. And I know both of you guys are out there exploring and spending some time. I think that's really great. I also wanted to mention Benny up in Washington. He told me that his wife's been going through some things, and I'm just wanting to shout out to you, and I'm hoping everything will be okay, and I'm sure it will. And then I also wanted to mention Paul down in Chandler, Arizona, who told me recently that his daughter's going through some things. And again, I wanted to let you know, Paul, I'm thinking of you, and I know that those kinds of things can be challenging. I've been through a lot of things in my life, and as an old friend of mine named Joe used to always say, I've been up to my ass in alligators. And I know how it is. I know how it is quite well. And though it's not happening to me right now, I've been there. And we all go through things from time to time, and we all need a little bit of encouragement. And I just want to let all of you know, and anybody out there that's watching this right now that's going through some kind of challenge, it's all going to be okay. And it'll all pass. My stepdad always used to say, this too will pass. Better days ahead. Man, I just can't believe how many people I've met on this trip. Mountain bikers are pretty cool people. After I left the Jackass Junction, I ran into a couple of guys. I talked to them for a little bit. And then shortly thereafter, I met this guy named Tim, who lives here in North Scottsdale. He's from Chicago originally. Tim, good to meet you. He and I got into some conversations about enduro motorcycle trips around Arizona. And looks like maybe I'll have another rider to go along with us, or for me to go along with. So good to meet you, Tim. Look forward to connecting with you, man. All right, we made it to 128th Street. Now it's all downhill down to Rio Verde Drive. Bus to move down to the street, cross over, and I'll be at Fragefield Trailhead. You can see the trailhead out there. Not too far away. Got a little rough stuff here. Not too bad though. One of the guys that I met today told me that all the loose rock on these are called baby heads. Never heard that before. Here we are at the trailhead. I've heard that there's water here. Oh yeah, it looks like there's a water fountain. This pandemic. That's supposed to be a water fountain, but it looks like they've closed it off for the time being. Lucky me. Only have maybe 20 some miles of uphill to go, and probably half of a bladder full of water. All right, we're at the trailhead here. I think what we're gonna do is take the Whiskey Bottle Trail all the way up here to the Vaquero, I think it's pronounced Vaquero Trail, over here to the Browns Ranch Road, all the way over here, and then all the way up Stagecoach, which I came down. And I'm gonna cut across over here to the street, and then up here to Stagecoach Pass in this direction, and I live over here. All right, so as far as I can tell, I've got about 8 to 9 miles of Singletrack left, and then another maybe 3 to 4 miles of paved road to get to my house. So 12, 13 miles, and the majority of it is uphill Singletrack. And the very first trail is the Whiskey Bottle Trail, going in that direction right there. The Whiskey Bottle Trail from that trailhead is a pretty serious climb. Now it looks like I've got some downhill for a while, get around these black hills, and then go straight across. I can even see Carefree from here, so that's good. Make some time up here. Nice long downhill. Got to maintain more control with your mountain bike when it's loaded with this kind of gear on these kinds of trails. I got to enjoy this downhill while I can, because the majority of this trip today is all uphill. The front wheel likes to slide on this stuff with all this extra weight on the front. So, check this out. Major, huge saguaro cactus tipped over, broke off. Maybe it was rotting, might have been rotting there, and maybe the wind came up really strong, high winds during a storm, broke it right off. All the arms, pretty crazy. Check this out. Look at how long that is. It's way up there, and check this out. All the way up at the very top is a hole here. And these holes are made by cactus wrens, which is the Arizona state bird. And they make homes in these saguaros, which is super cool. It's like a condominium. If I come down this tall saguaro, you can see here, look at that. I don't know if you can see in there, but it goes inside this to the center. And that's where they have their babies, lay their eggs. There's another one down here. You know, a lot of people that live here in Arizona probably already know this, but there's many people that watch this that aren't from Arizona. And I think it's pretty cool to share. Number one, I shared with you that the cactus wren is the state bird, and it makes its home in the saguaro cactus. The state flower is the saguaro cactus flower, and they bloom on the very tops of the arms and on the very tips of the saguaro itself. And I bet you didn't know that these things are pollinated at night by bats. Bats fly around and pollinate the saguaro cactus. I think that's so cool. Let me tell you, if you don't think this trail is as smooth as a baby's butt, a family just went by going in the other direction, and the dad had a baby trailer with a sleeping baby in the back on this Singletrack. Well, after a surprisingly long downhill on Vaquero, I think that's how you pronounce it, I finally got to Browns Ranch Road. And this is going to cross over a lot of the preserve here over to see the far west side, where I will pick up a trail that eventually leads me to Stagecoach Pass Trail and onto my house. Hawk's Nest at emergency marker HW24. It's kind of cool. It says the elevation, 2,659 feet. So if I die of dehydration, you know where to find me. And then do me a favor, take the footage off my phone, make my last video, and then sue the city of Scottsdale for having a water fountain at the trailhead down there in the middle of the desert and having it sealed off so I can't have any because of the pandemic. You know, the other day when I was talking about how you were all missing out, I don't think you're missing out on this part of it. Oh my goodness, civilization. Look at the beautiful homes here in Carefree. Whew. Well, it's official, I made it home. I think I learned a lot from this trip. First of all, I learned that I didn't bring enough food. I brought enough for the first and second day, but not enough for today at all. It definitely was short. The other thing I learned was I didn't have enough water, and where I camped last night, they did not have potable water, and where I was assuming I could get water was one of the trailheads, and because of the pandemic, the water fountain that was there was covered over, so I couldn't get any water there. So I ran out of water pretty much when I got to the pavement in Carefree, which required me to ride another 3-4 miles to get home. And you know, there were a number of things that I brought that I never used, but that doesn't mean I won't use them on a longer trip. So all in all, I think it was a good trip. The uphills weren't as bad as I thought they would be. And all in all, I'm pretty pleased, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. All right, my friends, I think that's it for this episode of 4Expedition Adventure. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you haven't become a subscriber, I definitely encourage you to hit that subscribe button. Of course, be sure to hit the notification bell down below to be notified of upcoming videos. And if you'd like to become a member of Team 4X, go to 4expedition.com/join to learn more. Until the next time, take care.